Hey there, and welcome back to Reality Recap, your one-stop destination for insider speculation and exclusive breaking news that goes deeper than the show ever has the guts to go. What you just watched is a scene that insiders claim went down only months back, far from the always present TLC cameras. If you thought the on-screen drama was explosive, then you haven't come near the boiling point of what was happening off-camera. This is not a story, it is a bombshell. A part chess game of law, a part payback. We've put it all together using family sources, legal contacts, and confidential documents we've been examining for weeks. But before we go into the war room and dissect the evidence that came so close to bringing down Kody Brown's empire, I need a quick favor. If you think these women are strong enough and believe in justice being served, give this video a like right now. And if you haven't subscribed, be sure to click that button and hit the bell. You won't want to miss a single update as this saga unfolds further. Okay, now let's dive in. To grasp how this union came to be, you first have to look at how broken the pieces really were. When Christine Brown finally mustered up the strength to leave Kody and the sister wives last fall in 2021, she wasn't merely abandoning a marriage. She was escaping a system. A system, sources claim, designed to keep the wives reliant as Kody himself held the reins firmly in place. Christine's relocation to Utah was hailed as a victorious breakout by fans. But beneath the grins and the cooking show, one privileged insider report gives a grimmer account. Reality caught up with her quickly. Cash was desperately tight. She had sold her Flagstaff house, but even that had been fought over. Don't forget the family's one-pot policy, the shared fund Christine had been adding her show proceeds and business revenue into for years. But when she left, in sources, Kody's position was hard and unforgiving. You leave the family, you take only what legally is in your name. And Christine. Not much was. Janelle's departure, though, was slower, drawn out, and more agonizing. We all witnessed the RV wars and the constant disagreements over Coyote Pass, but what we did not see was the extent of her financial entanglements for years. Janelle was the breadwinner, the one who worked, saved, and invested. A Flagstaff real estate source says it was her money that was the seed money to buy Coyote Pass. In other words, Janelle underwrote the very dream that Kody was now threatening her with. Following their explosive argument, an insider claims that Kody locked her out entirely. The family account she previously used off-limits. Money for her RV, her day-to-day needs. Her daughter Savannah. It all turned into a war zone. Kody's purported message couldn't be more explicit. Get in line or get nothing. Which left Janelle high and dry. Her life savings invested in land she couldn't access, bound to a man who no longer treated her like an equal partner. And then, there was Meri, the first wife. She was the one who had been with Kody the longest, and had been instrumental in building the foundation of all they possessed. Years went by, and audiences watched her find herself in marital limbo, holding on to a reconciliation that never materialized. Her devotion came at heartbreaking prices. A source from the production, speaking to Reality Recap anonymously, shared a chilling fact. They alleged that during their last 5 years of the empty marriage, Kody systematically moved assets and business names previously shared, or commonly family, owned into solely his and Robyn's control. Take Meri's bed and breakfast, Lizzie's Heritage Inn. Kody wanted to count it as a family asset, only when it turned profit. When it needed investment, he was nowhere to be found. That insiders say was Meri's wake-up call. She had to fund it alone, fight for it alone, and in doing so, she accidentally created the one asset Kody couldn't easily seize. So there is the board then, as it was 3 women spread out, emotionally bruised and financially trapped. Christine in Utah making a new life on shaky foundations. Janelle in her motorhome, seeing her retirement ambitions fall apart before her eyes, and Meri in Flagstaff, a queen in her castle with no king by her side, only gradually discovering that the castle itself had shaky foundations. They were isolated, and that is precisely how Kody preferred it. A split front, of course, is no front at all, but what Kody underestimated was precisely the glue created in the crucible of their unconventional existence. A bond of shared experience torn, perhaps, but not broken, the spark. 1,000 tiny betrayals that cut ever deeper. Revolutions do not often start with explosions. They start with a whisper. And for Christine, her whisper was in the guise of a grocery receipt. From an exclusive report by a close friend based in Salt Lake City, Christine was having a meeting with a financial advisor sometime in early 2023 to map out her new life as a single woman. As part of creating a realistic budget, she was requested to go through years' worth of historical expenditure. It was painstaking, agonizing, almost like conducting forensic accounting on the life she had just left behind. As she rummaged through dusty boxes she had pulled from Flagstaff, Christine found herself over something rather surprising: piles and piles of grocery receipts. For years, the family grocery budget had been her province, a huge responsibility in that large household. The family food fund, as it was jokingly referred to, was regularly replenished from the common family pot. But when Christine started checking those grocery store receipts against the food fund's bank records, something wasn't adding up at first. It seemed small: a $100 discrepancy here, a $200 discrepancy there. She chalked it up to sloppy accounting. But when she rolled it back year by year, a disquieting pattern emerged. Our source reports Christine discovered what could only be termed a shadow ledger: huge, periodic withdrawals, sometimes thousands of dollars a month, were made in the account, with no link to groceries or household items she had bought. The withdrawals, frequently online transfers or ATM cash withdrawals, appeared where she had never been. Her friend remembers Christine secluding herself in her office for a whole week, living on coffee and sheer willpower, as she worked through a painstakingly detailed spreadsheet accounting for every mysterious transaction. Death by 1,000 cuts. Each was such a small sum that it would have gone unnoticed in the workings of a huge family budget, but cumulatively over 10 years, the figure was eye-popping. The report alleges the amount pilfered from the food fund, funds intended to nourish Kody's 12 children with his first 3 wives, ended up in the 6-figure category. And here is where it gets incriminating. Christine supposedly referenced those shady dates and withdrawals with Kody and Robyn's activities. A large transfer on the day of their wedding anniversary. A series of ATM withdrawals coinciding with a Mexico honeymoon the other wives weren't invited on. A huge payment traced to a parent company of a high-end jewelry store. This wasn't money mismanaged. This was betrayal at its worst. To Christine, it was stealing from her children's plates to fund a private, monogamous existence for Robyn. Her friend reports that Christine felt ill. Years she'd been told her sacrifices weren't enough. Now she had a binder full of evidence that it wasn't her imagination. It was intentional. It was strategy. Nevertheless, Christine understood receipts would not win the war alone. Kody would be able to spin the story, say those withdrawals went toward family expenses, cloud the issue. As he had in so many family gatherings, she required more confirmation. On a greater scale, and there was one individual she could trust bringing her in, Janelle. It was a risk. Theirs had always been the strongest of the sister-wife relationships, but Christine's departure had created some space, friendly, to be sure, but tense. Still, Christine remembered Janelle's implacable practicality and fierce commitment to equity, particularly when it came to money and the future of the children. Based on our source, Christine called Janelle. "Janelle, I need to talk to you, and I need you to bring your Coyote Pass records. All of them." Janelle's response was guarded. "Christine, what is up? Is this about the show?" Christine's reply was quick, virtually desperate. "Number, this is about our lives, our children's futures. The money we believed was ours." So a week later, the two women sat in a private setting, a plain, off-beaten path hotel meeting room midway between Salt Lake City and Flagstaff. No cameras, no crew, only real life. Janelle arrived skeptical, assuming Christine had found a minor discrepancy and was overreacting. She brought only a slim file folder, her documents tied to Coyote Pass. Christine was already waiting, laptop open, with a thick binder in front of her. Its label, handwritten in bold, groceries. Christine didn't just hand Janelle the numbers. Christine explained it all to Janelle. The pattern, the timing, the unmistakable trail. She demonstrated how the withdrawals from the family food budget consistently coincided with the low points in Kody's businesses, running essentially like a secret slush fund. Her hypothesis was straightforward but disastrous. This small diversion from the grocery budget was simply a smaller echo of an enormous lie. Janelle sat quietly for a long time, and then, from our source, she opened up her own folder. That is when the pieces of the puzzle started to fall into place. Janelle's narrative wasn't one of a sequence of small cuts. It was one giant wound, Coyote Pass. Here is the exclusive theory we at Reality Recap have constructed after reviewing public property records and rumors from Flagstaff insiders. When the Browns bought Coyote Pass, the funds were derived from a variety of sources. But most, by far, were derived from the equity in their homes in Las Vegas. And whose house had the most equity? Janelle. She had lived simply, paid off her mortgage rapidly, and invested prudently. By our calculations, she contributed almost twice what any of the other wives did toward the down payment on that property. On television, the deal was sold as equitable. Both wives would end up owning a plot of land to construct on, their heirloom, their age. But the papers Janelle pushed across the table revealed another story. She introduced Christine to the loan documents, drawn up so that all the final say would rest with Kody. She produced the minutes of meetings of their family's LLC. Dansark Entertainment, demonstrating the way her voting rights had been gradually eroded over the years. And then there was the punch that almost knocked Christine for 6. Janelle whispered softly. He has taken a loan against the house, Christine. A line of credit not for development, for something else. A Flagstaff banking source corroborates this assertion, claiming Kody Brown as the only primary signatory for the Coyote Pass. LLC negotiated a large home equity line of credit against the raw, unflipped land. And where did that money go? Janelle suspected, but when combined with Christine's grocery spreadsheet, the image became chillingly clear. The two women sat in that cramped hotel conference room for the remainder of 4 hours, piecing it all together. Christine's meticulous documentation of the grocery fund was a pattern. Kody had no objection to siphoning funds of a communal nature for his own intentions. Janelle's files revealed the extent: land, properties, inheritance, futures. It wasn't simply a matter of groceries any longer. It was about the empire itself. Skepticism had dissipated by the close of that meeting. In its place was cold, unyielding determination. They had a case, a good one, but it was still incomplete. Their evidence spanned the Flagstaff years, but the agreement, the apparatus Kody was now distorting, had foundations decades previously. To actually establish a long-term violation, they required history. They required records from the start. They required the sole individual who had been present from day one, the custodian of the initial vision. They required Meri. Convincing Meri, however, would be their greatest challenge, yet welcome to Reality Recap. In Part 1, we unveiled the secret meeting that initiated the alliance. In Part 2, we revealed how Christine's finding of a hidden ledger in the family grocery fund, combined with Janelle's proof of financial finagling around Coyote Pass, to constitute the framework of a possible case against Kody Brown. But there was a lack of evidence it reached Flagstaff. But to demonstrate a lifelong violation of trust, they required the origin story, and that necessitated hiring the most reluctant of all allies. Meri Brown. Coming at Meri was like wading into a minefield. From our sources who know all three women personally, Meri was still the most ideologically invested in the original vision of the Brown family. Her emotional connection to Kody, scarred and unreceived though it was, went almost 30 years back. She felt abandoned, sure, but still had a messy loyalty to the man and the institution she had built from scratch. Christine and Janelle understood storming in and accusing Kody stole from us. Join our fight would immediately blow up in their faces. Meri would get defensive, her loyalty would blaze, so they went the other way. They didn't appeal to her rage. They appealed to her sense of history, legacy, and truth. On a video call, Janelle stared directly at the camera and stated, "Meri, we're not calling to bring Kody down. We're calling because we need your memory. We need the truth about how things were supposed to work. Our source tells us the first hour of that conversation was not about money at all. It was about memories." Christine and Janelle started by taking Meri back to the very start. Lehi, Utah. They reminded her of the early days, the hardships, the constant sacrifices, how all the adults worked multiple jobs just to keep the family alive. How Meri and Janelle combined their paychecks into a single account that paid for all the household expenses. How Christine set up the home and the kids so the others could work. They invoked the family mission statement, created in collaboration all those years ago in the 1990s. A guiding covenant, not a legal document. It was the first agreement, an oral and spiritual one, that had defined their lives for over 25 years. All that they earned, all that they created, belonged to the group. governed for the benefit of all wives and all children, not according to the capricious will of the patriarch. After the emotional foundation was established, they cautiously revealed their results. Christine Screen shared her elaborate grocery spreadsheet. Janelle described the loan and the line of credit taken against Coyote Pass, the property that was to be their shared retirement fantasy. Meri's reaction wasn't explosive rage. It was quieter, deeper, and aching sadness. A source close to her described her as shattered. For her, it wasn't just about Kody's lack of love. It was the devastating realization that the very principle she had built her life upon had been desecrated. And still, they hesitated. To commit to Christine and Janelle simply was to cut the final cord that held her to the dream she had held onto for so many years. The tipping point, our informant says, occurred when Janelle brought up the children. "Meri," Janelle said, "this is not about us anymore. This is about them, about Logan, Leon, Aspen, all of them. What Kody is using isn't simply land, it is their legacy. The legacy that we created for them. Are you seriously going to let him and Robyn waste it all?" That struck the nerve they had been aiming for. Not just Meri's loyalty to her own child, but her deep maternal instinct for the entire original 13. The thought of Kody gambling away the future security of all the kids was something she could not ignore. 2 days later, Meri called them back. Her voice firm, "Count me in. And I have something better even than your spreadsheets. I have the boxes." Meri had served as the family archivist for years. On the shelves of her Flagstaff home were boxes and boxes of ancient records. Tax returns, financial statements, loan applications, handwritten budgets, dating back to the 1990s. Documents Kody had long since forgotten. Evidence of the one-pot system in black and white. Paychecks from 3 women deposited into one account. Tax returns that reflected joint assets. Notebook budgets handwritten in ink from back in their Lehigh trailer days. Meri didn't merely carry the memory of the agreement. She had the receipts. And with that, the union was cemented. The OG3 were won, but solidarity wasn't sufficient. They required firepower going up against Kody, armed with TLC's resources and a maze of LLCs, meant they needed expertise. So, our sources confirm, they pooled their resources and retained one of the top forensic accountants in the Southwest. We'll call her Eleanor Vance to protect our source's identity. Among themselves, they nicknamed her the Architect, Vance's Scottsdale. Based practice excelled at breaking apart intricate financial relationships, usually in dirty high-stakes divorces or partnerships unraveling. The first official meeting of what the women half-humorously called the Ex-Wives Club occurred in Vance's clinical conference room, a room that soon became their war room. A case-prep-savvy legal clerk provided us with an inside look at those sessions. Vance started by asking each of the women to recount her tale uninterrupted. Christine went first. She spread out her receipt, filled binder, and her torturous spreadsheet. The lawyers who heard it weren't impressed initially. To them, it made Kody selfish, but perhaps not legally incriminating. But the accountant-turned-lawyer, Vance, noticed something everyone else missed. "This isn't about the dollar amount," she said. "This is about intent and mechanism. What you've documented shows a repeatable method of quietly diverting communal funds into a private sphere. It establishes a hidden system. This is our Rosetta Stone." Then Janelle arrived. She laid out the Coyote Pass deeds, the LLC operating agreement, and the proof of the jaw-dropping line of credit on the table. Independently, Kody's lawyers would be able to rationalize it was just a business ploy, using an asset as investment. But once Vance placed Janelle's papers alongside Christine's, the image changed. With her knowledge, she started tying together dots that the wives could never have done in isolation. She set it out piece by piece. Christine speculated that the siphoning of the grocery money had been Kody and Robyn's own piggy bank vacations, splurges, gifts that displayed wealth while the rest of the family pinched pennies for groceries. But that was only the small-time thievery. The real betrayal was when Janelle exposed that Kody had used Coyote Pass, their shared inheritance, to finance larger ventures, paying off debts only in his and Robyn's names, funding Robyn's unsuccessful online jewelry business, and most transgressively of all, as a down payment on the $1 million house where only his favorite wife and her kids would gain. The room fell silent. The lawyers who had been quietly listening now leaned in, pencils scurrying across pads. This was no longer a cluttered domestic squabble. This was classic breach of fiduciary duty. Meri's turn came next, and she didn't bring a spreadsheet. She brought the past. Her team had scanned the contents of boxes from decades past. On the enormous conference room screen, their lawyer queued up 2005 tax returns, 3 wives, 1 husband, all their incomes pouring into one household. Then there was a loan application from the Lehigh years signed by each grown-up, obviously considering their finances as a single entity. Then, the icing on the cake, handwritten budgets from the late 90s, line by line, demonstrating how each paycheck was shared and distributed under a system of family sharing. Meri's archives changed everything. What had once seemed like an informal spiritual marriage was now legally undeniable. They had been functioning as an unregistered domestic partnership for more than 2 decades. Kody wasn't just shifting money around in Flagstaff. He had been dismantling a documented financial pact, draining a system that had supported every wife and every child since day one. Their lawyer explained it. Kody would contend that they were simply independent contractors in a spiritual arrangement. But Meri's records undercut that defense. The evidence revealed a single economic unit, and Kody, as manager, owed a fiduciary duty to the entire partnership. Yet, he had siphoned assets to construct an entirely separate empire with Robyn. The puzzle was whole. Christine's shadow ledger demonstrated method and purpose. Janelle's Coyote Pass files illustrated the magnitude of the destruction. Meri's history sealed the legal ground. Individually, their complaints were tenuous. Together, they constituted an impenetrable fortress. The war room had crafted its weapon. Now, it was time to fire. By the end of summer 2023, Kody Brown was taken aback, not by 1 lawsuit but 3. Christine, Janelle, and Meri all filed identical petitions with Coconino County Superior Court. 3 at once. The plan was shock and awe, an allied legal force calculated to overwhelm him and stop him from whittling them away individually. The documents explained to us by an insider familiar with the case were a masterclass in litigation. The accusations: breach of fiduciary duty, Faye accusing Kody of breaching his position as financial manager; unjust enrichment, Faye claiming Kody and Robyn had personally benefited at the expense of the other wives directly; petition for dissolution of unregistered domestic partnership, Faye the bombshell, requesting the court to recognize their 20-plus-year plural marriage as a domestic partnership, with assets to be divided equitably; fraudulent conveyance, Faye asserting Kody had intentionally conveyed assets into his and Robyn's names to conceal them from rightful division sources within the family, account for Kody's response as sheer disbelief that degenerated into volcanic anger. He apparently labeled it a biblical betrayal. He was unable to accept that the women he believed were still beholden to him had the strength and cunning to outplay him. His initial panic ploy, calling TLC, racing to spin the lawsuits into a narrative. But the wives' attorneys had been 1 step ahead of that play. They sent a cease and desist letter, prohibiting discussion of the lawsuits on camera. In a single night, Kody lost not just his money and influence, but his soapbox to spin the story. The fight was on. They were silenced. Robyn's response, as reported by the Insider, was absolutely pure panic. The suit specifically named entities closely associated with her, including the business behind her online jewelry business, My Sister Wife's Closet. The financial protection she and Kody had built so diligently was about to be shattered. The picture she had so carefully created, one of the devoted, wronged wife, was now being dismantled in a courtroom. There followed a vicious discovery period. Depositions were conducted. Kody, insiders say, was interrogated for 3 days straight. One source familiar with the transcripts characterized him as belligerent, evasive, and repeatedly relying on tearful appeals and religious rationalizations for his financial actions. He broke down at one point, accusing his ex-wives of attempting to destroy the family and steal their own kids, a source told. One of his lawyers grilled him. "Mr. Brown, can you tell me about this $15,000 transaction from the Family Food Fund to Dubsark Entertainment on the 7th of April 2018? Kody's reply: "It was a family expense. Everything I did was for this family. This is a witch hunt. They never appreciated me." But the forensic accounting of Eleanor Vance was too precise. Each of the OG3 lawyers' questions was backed by concrete evidence, receipts, bank statements, documents. Bit by bit, They destroyed Kody's line of reasoning that it was all in the family's interest. Rather, the paper trail indicated money flowing only in one direction, out of accounts raised by Christine, Janelle, and Meri, and into accounts belonging to only Kody and Robyn. The so-called smoking gun, as revealed in leaked transcripts, was a 2019 email from Kody to his accountant. In the message, he requested guidance on simplifying the family business structure by grouping assets under a new entity owned solely by himself and Robyn. The attorneys for the ex-wives characterized this not as simplification, but as a deliberate scheme to exclude Christine, Janelle, Meri, and their 13 children from the family legacy altogether. When a trial date was scheduled, Kody's camp, faced with the overwhelming evidence, insisted on a settlement. But Christine, Janelle, and Meri, after great deliberation, declined. It wasn't about a payment, it was about having their truth heard finally in a court of law. They wanted justice. The trial itself was private, shielded from cameras, but according to our legal source, the outcome was a resounding vindication for the OG3. After a 2-week trial, the judge delivered her ruling. We've obtained a paraphrased summary of her striking closing remarks. More than 2 decades, these 4 women and 1 man existed as one economic union, based on pooled labor, pooled resources, and pooled promise of a shared future. But the defendant, Mr. Brown, operated unilaterally in later years, deliberately dismantling that union and appropriating assets for the exclusive use of himself and one partner to the exclusion of the others. This court will not opine on religion or religious unions. It decides on justice and financial fairness. And here, there is no doubt about the injustice. The ruling was nearly a full win for the ex-wives. The court required Coyote Pass to sell right away, with proceeds distributed to the parties. A constructive trust was imposed over much of the assets of Kody and Robyn, including their property, to repay misdirected funds. Even the intellectual property related to the show, handled through the family LLC, was ordered into division. This wasn't about demolishing Kody, it was about taking back what was theirs. It was the forced dissolution of the Brown family dynasty, and finally, the original wives received their due, together in victory, the strength of sisterhood. Ultimately, this epic isn't just about suits and ledgers. It is about the ultimate victory of sisterhood over a man who attempted to divide and conquer them. Kody might have broken them as wives, but in the process, he remade their bond as sisters. Sources say that upon the verdict, the 3 women did not host an elaborate party. Instead, they had a quiet dinner, with tears, laughter, and the bitter recognition of having endured such pain together and separately. They took back their futures, they took back their voices, they demonstrated that they were never discardable, but the foundation of the Brown family. And when the patriarch attempted to set the house on fire so he could warm one room for himself, they came up from the ashes, arm in arm, and constructed new houses. On their own terms, their war is finally over. Their new lives are only just beginning. So what do you think of this explosive lawsuit fight? Was Christine, Janelle, and Meri's decision to make a stand correct? Let us know in the comments below. We'll be staying up to date with every new turn in this saga here at Reality Recap. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and we'll catch you in the next one.